guys, it's Angela, and today I'm going to tell you about all the books I read during the month of February. So during the month of February, I read 11 books, but one of those books is for like a secret TBR video thing that I'm doing, so I'm only going to be talking about 10 of them today. But overall, I'd say it was like a really good reading month for me. I read 1 3-star book, 4 4-star books, 3 5-star books, and then I read 2 books that I did not rate because I read them for school. So as per usual, I'm going to be starting with the lowest rated books and then working my way up to the top. And then because I have 2 like school books that I didn't rate, I'm just gonna do those after I talk about the 5-star books. So let's get into it. So starting with the 1 3-star book, we have The Toll by Neal Shusterman. This is the 3rd and final book in the Arc of the Scythe trilogy. I gave the first 2 books 5 stars, and as I just said, I gave this one 3. I enjoyed it, but I feel like it just didn't live up to the other books. After the events of the 2nd book, Thunderhead, I understand that like things were going to be kind of wonky, but still I don't know. I just didn't love it as much as I loved the other 2 books. But with that being said, for me, a 3-star book is still a good book, so don't think it's not. I did enjoy this. There was also a non-binary character that was introduced in this book, and I thought that that was great, and I love to see the representation. But if you don't already know, the first book in this series, Scythe, is about a utopian world, which is sort of like a dystopian, and in that world, no one can die naturally, so these people called scythes are trained and hired to glean or kill people. And yeah, this was the conclusion to that series. Overall, I really did enjoy the series and could definitely see myself reading it again in the future. Now onto the 4 4-star books. First we have Dear Martin by Nick Stone, and I really loved this book. It's quite short and honestly really easy to read. I feel like this book would be so beneficial to be read in like high schools, especially because, like I said, it is short, but this does pack a punch. This follows our main character, Justice, who is an African-American individual in high school. I think he's a senior. And he's just been struggling with a lot of like discrimination and stuff at school, like racial discrimination. And then he gets caught in the crosshairs of a shooting between a police officer and another individual who is his friend. So he's really struggling with his own personal identity and just everything. So he starts writing letters to Martin Luther King Jr. in this book, which I thought that was so powerful. And this book is just so good. I gave it 4 stars because I feel like I just wished that it was longer. I feel like everything that happened in this book happened really fast, and I would have just loved to know more. But then again, like I said, this book would be great to be read in schools. So if you haven't already picked it up, I would highly recommend it. Actually, while I was reading it, I learned that there's going to be a sequel, I believe, or the author's writing another book maybe within the characters in this neighborhood or whatever. But yeah, really enjoyed it. Next 4-star book is No Exit by Taylor Adams. Oh my goodness. This might even be like between a 4 and a 4.5. I don't know. It was really good. Honestly, this book sort of reads like a horror movie. So this follows a woman whose mother has pancreatic cancer, and she's trying to drive home to see her in the hospital. And there's a terrible snowstorm, and she gets stranded at a rest stop with, I think, 4 other individuals. And then she discovers that in the back of one of the trucks is a girl, and she's like 8 or 9, and she's in a cage. And then the main character has this moral dilemma of what do I do in this situation, because obviously someone in that rest stop is like a very bad person. And I loved this book so much. It really made me think and like made me wonder what I would do if I was in that situation. This book would honestly be a great like horror movie. I could definitely see this being made into a movie because it's just so cinematic. It sort of reminds me of the horror movie Rest Stop, which is like one of my favorites, just because of the vibes that this book has. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and it really surprised me because this book was actually quite diverse. As I mentioned before, there's a character with pancreatic cancer, which is the main character's mom. The main character herself suffers from asthma attacks. And then there's another chronic illness that gets introduced in this book called Addison's disease, which is something that I didn't know anything about, but it's essentially a disease that like involves like your adrenal glands and stuff. And it was just very interesting, and I was very just happy to get that little bit of chronic illness rep. And leave this book not only loving the story, but also like learning about a new chronic illness. So yeah, I really loved it and I would highly, highly recommend it. And I read it in February, which was the perfect time because it was just like snowy. And so it was atmospheric. It was great. Absolutely great. The next 4-star book I read was another thriller, and that was The Other People by C.J. Tudor. This was the Literally Dead book club pick for the first month of the book club. That is a book club hosted by Kayla from the channel Books and Lala, and I really enjoyed this book. So I feel like going into most thrillers, it's sort of best to not know much. So what I will say about this book is that it's about a man who is driving home from work, and when he's driving home, he sees his daughter in the back of this van, and she's like mouthing like, "Help me." And then he gets home and finds out that his wife and his daughter have been murdered. But he is convinced that he had just saw his daughter 5 or 10 minutes ago on the highway. So basically now his life revolves around solving this mystery and really just getting to the bottom of things. This book had so many twists and turns. Honestly, it's probably one of the most like twistiest thrillers I've read because there was just like so many plot twists. There was so much going on. There's a lot of different points of views, so sometimes that could get like a little bit confusing. But overall, I really enjoyed the story. This was the first book that I picked up by this author, and I would definitely see myself picking up another one. And the last 4-star book I read was Love Her or Lose Her by Tessa Bailey. Tessa Bailey also wrote Fix Her Up, which I read last year and really enjoyed. This is an adult romance novel about a couple named Rosie and Dom, and their relationship is just really struggling. Like, they really don't talk a lot. It's just like very, very toxic and just very bad. And so the wife files for a divorce, and then they both agree that if they go to couples therapy, maybe they can like work things out. So it's basically, this whole book is like their entire marriage is like on the line for like the majority of this book, and you're just wondering like, are they going to get divorced or are they going to stay together? And yeah, overall I enjoyed it. I did enjoy Fix Her Up more, but still I did give this book 4 stars and I did enjoy it. And I know there's a 3rd book coming out like within this series. Oh yeah, this is like part of a series. So the characters from Fix Her Up were also in this. And then there's characters in this book that are getting a spin-off, I think, this year. So yeah, really enjoyed it. Now into the 5-star books. First we have The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. This is a super well-known YA dystopian trilogy. And at the ripe age of 21, I've finally read it for the first time. I saw the movie way back, but honestly really didn't remember much. So this was very much a new story to me while reading it. And I get it. I get the hype. It was really, really good, and I really enjoyed it. I'm going to be reading the 3 Hunger Games books over the next 3 months in anticipation for her new book to come out, which is a sequel. No, prequel to the Hunger Games. But yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I totally get the hype. The next 5-star book I have is The Vanishing Star by Maureen Johnson. This is the 2nd book in the Truly Devious trilogy. And this book follows the main character, Stevie, who's currently attending this academy called Ellingham Academy, and it's like super elite. And the students that go there have like a particular interest in something. So Stevie is personally very interested in true crime. So she goes to that school, and there was a crime that occurred at that school, and Stevie is trying to figure it out present day while there are currently some suspicious things also happening. So this story is a dual timeline, so you're going like back in the day to now, which I really enjoyed, and I equally enjoyed both timelines. Stevie has anxiety and takes anxiety medication, and just like in the first book, the rep was very much present in here and very well done as well. And also within this book, there was a nice surprise in terms of chronic illness. There's a teen in this book who has rheumatoid arthritis, which I wasn't expecting, but was very happy to read about and be able to see it represented. And yeah, overall, I love this. Honestly, I think I even liked it more than Truly Devious, the first book, and I also gave that book 5 stars. But yeah, this series is super good, and I can't wait to read the last one. The final 5-star book I have is an ARC, and that is The Office, the untold story of the greatest sitcom by Andy Green. And this will be released on March 24th, and I absolutely loved it. If you like The Office, I'm just gonna say right off the bat, you're probably gonna like this book. This book is structured in like an interview format, so it's very fast paced and very easy to read. The entire cast shows up in this book. They're interviewed as well as like producers and then the people behind the scenes in costume and lights and camera, and it was so good. And the structure of this book is really good too, because it goes like before The Office was created and then to the casting, and then it goes into the seasons. So each season has a chapter, but then within the season chapters, there's also other chapters on like notable episodes. And it's just a whole interview of everybody, and it was just super, super good. I'm definitely going to be purchasing it when it comes out on March 24th because I did really enjoy it. I kind of feel like I wish someone would do the same thing with the TV show Parks and Rec, because it has like a very similar Office vibe and was aired like during the same time, although it ended later. And honestly, it makes me want to like be the person to do it because it's just such a great idea. And it was just so cool. So much behind the scenes information. So much of the actors and actresses themselves talking about the personal character and their relationship with the other actors and actresses and how they landed the job and who was supposed to be Jim before Jim was Jim and who was supposed to be Dwight before Dwight was Dwight and all that sort of stuff. It was great. Loved it so much. And if you're an Office fan, you're going to love it. So now on to the 2 books that I did not rate because I read them for school. The first one is The Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet Jacobs. This is an autobiography, and I read this for my American Literary Freedom and Slave Narrative class, and this is one of 5 books that I'll be reading this semester, and I really enjoyed it. It's quite a small book, so I feel like it's quick to get through, but it was a really powerful story about this woman and what she went through with slavery. And I've heard that it's like been a play too. It's very, very interesting. I think probably the most interesting part of this story, and also the most hard part of this story, is the fact that she spends years in a shed, in the top of a shed, where she can't stand up and can only lay down and only has a certain amount of room. And that was just very powerful. It honestly gave me the sort of vibes of like the Diary of Anne Frank, how she was, trapped up above. And this was the same thing for Harriet. She was trapped in the shed, and then below, she just watched her children living their lives. She watched one of her children get bit by a dog. It's quite, any slave narrative I feel like is going to be a hard book to read because it's a hard topic to talk about. But I think that this book is definitely worth the read, and I learned a lot and overall really enjoyed her story. And the last book that I read for school was A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, and I really enjoyed this as well. This was sort of a feminist essay thing about women in literature and how they're portrayed in literature and how women become successful writers and just stuff like that. It was written in like 1892 or something like that, 1900s. It was a while ago, but I really enjoyed it, and I felt that it still maintained its relevance today, and I'm happy that I read it. So those were the 10 books that I read in February. This wrap up is going up later than I'd like it to, and I'm sorry about that. I was super busy with school, and then now, of course, I live in New York, and the governor shut down all of the SUNY colleges in New York for the remainder of the semester. So I'm a commuter, so it's like a 30-minute drive to school and then a 30-minute drive back. And I have classes 5 days a week. So now I'm going to be doing school from home as we're switching to online classes. And because of my weak immune system and my other health concerns, I'm pretty much just going to be staying home right now with the coronavirus, because if I get sick, it could be really bad for me. So I'm staying home right now, so I'm going to be getting a lot of reading done. Like, a lot of reading done. Like, not to spoil anything, but I film and edit and post at the same day, so today is like the 12th. And I've already read 7 or 8 books for March. So I think I'm going to start doing like weekly reading vlogs during that time because, as I said, I'm going to be doing school online and I'm going to be spending a majority of my time by myself at home alone. So I thought it would be fun to sort of do reading vlogs, so let me know if you guys would be interested in that. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and have a good one.